In the cruel math of the galaxy, the rule was simple: the heavy crushed the light. The Aethonians were the lightest of all. They were birds with hollow bones, fragile wings, and zero weapons. To the mighty Galactic Council, they were not a civilization, they were just a snack. The Council launched a massive invasion, expecting the birds to scream and run. They prepared for a slaughter. But they made one fatal mistake. They forgot to check who the birds were friends with. They didn't know that on a high-gravity death world called Earth, the Aethonians had signed a treaty. A treaty with a species that loves to pack bond. A species that views protecting the little guy as a sport. When the alien fleet landed, they didn't find helpless victims. They found a wall of iron. The galaxy is about to learn a terrifying lesson. It is easy to break a bird's wing, but only if you are willing to fight the monster standing in front of it. The great hall of the galaxy was cold and dark. It was a massive room, built to make visitors feel small and weak. In the center of the room stood Ambassador Creek. Creek was an Aethonian, a bird-like alien. He was tall but very thin, with bright blue feathers and hollow bones. Usually, Aethonians were happy and loved to sing, but today, Creek was shaking with fear. High above him sat the Galactic Council. These were the rulers of the galaxy. They were giant monsters with thick, armored skin and sharp teeth. They looked down at the little bird like he was a snack. "Your time is up," the High Counselor boomed. His voice sounded like thunder shaking the floor. "The council has decided. We need the minerals under your forests. You have 2 days to leave your planet." Creek fell to his knees. His fragile legs could barely hold him up. "Please," Creek chirped softly. "Nest Prime is our only home. Our trees are our life. If we leave, our hatchlings will die. We have nowhere to go." The council members looked at each other and started to laugh. It was a cruel, ugly sound. To them, the universe was simple: the strong take what they want, and the weak must obey. The Aethonians were the weakest of all. They had no army, no heavy ships, and no claws. "That is not our problem," the High Counselor sneered. "Leave, or we will crush you." Creek closed his eyes, waiting for the end. But suddenly, a heavy sound broke the silence. It was the sound of boots hitting the metal floor. Standing in the shadows was a figure wrapped in a gray uniform. It was a human. The humans were new to the galaxy. They were small compared to the council monsters. They had no wings, no hard shells, and no natural weapons. The council usually ignored them, thinking humans were soft and useless. The human diplomat, a man named General Vance, stepped into the light. He walked straight to the trembling bird. Vance placed a heavy, warm hand on Creek's shoulder. Creek looked up in surprise. The human did not look scared. He looked calm. "The Aethonians are not going anywhere," Vance said. His voice was not loud, but it was hard like a stone. The High Counselor stopped laughing. He leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. "Excuse me. You dare speak, little ape? This does not concern Earth." "It does now," Vance replied. He tightened his grip on Creek's shoulder, holding the bird up so he could stand tall. "We signed a treaty with the Aethonians this morning. They are our friends. And humans have a very simple rule: we don't leave our friends behind." The entire hall went silent. The council could not believe it. A weak species protecting another weak species. It was a joke. "You are making a mistake," the counselor roared, showing his teeth. "If you stand with the birds, you will die with them. Our fleet will burn your worlds to ash." General Vance did not flinch. He stared straight at the giant monster. "If you touch one feather on their heads," Vance said coldly, "you answer to us. We will see you on the battlefield." Vance turned around and guided Creek toward the exit. "Come on, Creek. Let's get you home." As the doors closed behind them, the council screamed in rage. War was declared. The alien leaders thought this would be an easy victory. They had no idea that by threatening the weak, they had just angered the most stubborn species in the galaxy. The sky above the planet Nest Prime was usually a beautiful pink color. But today, it was black. Thousands of council dropships filled the air. They looked like ugly metal insects descending on a garden. On the ground, the invasion commander, General Grok, stepped off his ship. Grok was a Krogian, a massive lizard with skin as hard as rock. He held a plasma cannon that was bigger than a whole Aethonian bird. He looked around the forest. He saw giant trees with delicate glass-like leaves. He saw the Aethonian nests, high up in the branches. Pathetic, Grok growled. Burn the trees. Break their wings. This war will be over in 10 minutes. His soldiers laughed. They marched forward, crushing the beautiful flowers under their heavy boots. They expected the birds to fly away in terror. They waited for the sound of screaming. Instead, they felt the ground shake. The water in the puddles rippled. The birds in the trees were not screaming, they were silent. Suddenly, the thick bushes exploded. A massive machine rolled out. It was a human tank, painted green and brown to match the forest. It was ugly, blocky, and looked incredibly heavy. It did not hover gracefully like the council ships, it crushed the dirt with metal tracks. General Grok was confused. "What is that antique box?" he shouted. "Fire!" The lizard soldiers fired their blue plasma lasers at the tank. Pew pew pew. The lasers hit the human tank, but they just splashed off the thick armor. The tank did not stop. It did not even slow down. The turret on top slowly turned toward Grok. "Is that all you got?" a voice amplified from the tank asked. Before Grok could answer, a high-pitched whistle cut through the air. From the sky, hundreds of colorful blurs dived down. It was the Aethonians. But they were not naked birds anymore. They wore light human-made vests and carried small, rapid-fire kinetic rifles. This was the trap. The human tanks were the shield. They drew all the enemy fire. The aliens were so focused on shooting the big metal boxes that they forgot to look up. The Aethonians were the sword. They dived at speeds faster than sound. They zipped past the lizard soldiers, firing bullets into the soft spots of their armor, the neck and the eyes. It was chaos for the council army. "Look up! Shoot the birds!" Grok screamed. His soldiers tried to aim their guns at the sky. But the moment they looked up, the human tanks opened fire. Boom! Heavy explosive shells slammed into the alien lines. "Look down! Shoot the tanks!" Grok yelled, panicking. The soldiers looked down. Immediately, the Aethonians swooped back in, dropping grenades right on the aliens' heads. The mighty council army was trapped in a nightmare. If they fought the ground, the sky killed them. If they fought the sky, the ground killed them. The humans were the anvil, and the birds were the hammer. General Grok watched his elite squad get destroyed in minutes. He saw a human soldier pop out of a tank hatch. An Aethonian bird landed on the human's shoulder to reload his weapon. They fist bumped and went back to fighting. They moved like one creature. Grok realized with horror that the council had made a terrible calculation. The birds gave the humans speed. The humans gave the birds strength. Together, they were not weak. They were unstoppable. "Retreat!" Grok screamed, running back to his ship. "Get us off this rock." But as he ran, he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy had woken up a new kind of monster. The war did not end in the forest. It moved to the cold, dark ocean of outer space. High Admiral Vex stood on the bridge of the Star Eater, the largest ship in the Council fleet. Vex was a creature of pure logic. He had 4 eyes and blue skin. He had studied the battle on the planet below. The ground war was a mistake, Vex said calmly. The humans used the trees for cover. But out here, there is no cover. There is nowhere to hide. In front of him, the human fleet floated in the darkness. They were ugly ships. They looked like giant flying bricks made of gray steel. They had no graceful curves, no glowing energy shields, and no elegance. They were just thick blocks of metal. Target the lead human ship, Vex ordered. Burn it down. The Council fleet fired valuable energy beams. Zap. 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 The beams hit the human command ship, the UNS Ironclad. The hull glowed red, but the ship did not explode. The humans had simply put so much armor on their ships that they were too thick to melt. They are just sitting there, a council officer said, confused. They are not moving. They are just taking the hits. They are waiting, Vex realized. But for what? Suddenly, the radar screen turned red. Thousands of tiny dots appeared from behind the giant human ships. They looked like a swarm of angry bees. It was the Aethonians. They were flying small, triangular starfighters called sparrows. Launch interceptors. Vex shouted. Shoot them down. The council pilots launched their sleek fighters to chase the birds. This should have been an easy win. The council ships had better computers. But they forgot one thing, biology. In space, speed kills. If a pilot turns a ship too fast, the pressure, called G-force, pushes the blood out of their brain. They pass out. A human pilot can handle 9 GS. A council pilot can handle 7 GS. An Aethonian pilot can handle 20 GS. The battle began. The council pilots tried to lock onto the sparrows. But every time they got close, the Aethonian ships did a crazy maneuver. They spun, dipped, and turned at sharp angles that looked impossible. If a council pilot tried to follow those turns, their brain shut down. They moved too fast, a council pilot screamed over the radio. I can't keep up. I'm blacking out. While the council fighters were dizzy and confused, the Aethonians were having fun. To a bird, flight was natural. They danced through the stars. They flew right up to the giant enemy battleships. The human bricks fired messy clouds of metal fragments, stripping away the enemy shields. Once the shields were down, the Aethonians zoomed in. They were small enough to fly inside the enemy engine exhaust ports. One by one, the mighty council engines died. The great fleet was left drifting in space, blind and unable to move. On the bridge of the Star Eater, Admiral Vex watched his screen. He saw a transmission coming from the human fleet. It was a video feed. It showed a human captain holding a cup of coffee, looking bored, while an Aethonian pilot behind him waved a wing happily at the camera. Vex slammed his fist on the table. The humans provided the wall. The birds provided the needle. The council had brought raw power to the fight, but they had been beaten by skill and biology. Pull back, Vex whispered, terrified. We cannot fight physics. But as he reached for the controls, a shadow fell over his ship. The humans were not letting them leave. The council was losing. Their ships were burning, and their soldiers were running away. Admiral Vex looked at the battle map with hate in his 4 eyes. He knew he could not beat the speed of the birds or the armor of the humans. So, he decided to cheat. Prepare the grav bomb, Vex ordered. His officers gasped. Sir. That weapon is banned. It violates the laws of war. I make the laws now. Vex screamed. Fire it. A small, black missile shot out from the council flagship. It flew into the middle of the battlefield and detonated. It did not make fire or heat. It made weight. Suddenly, a purple wave of energy exploded outward. It hit the entire fleet. The effect was instant. The artificial gravity in that sector increased by 10 times. For the Aethonians, this was a death sentence. They were creatures of the sky. Their bones were hollow, like straws, to help them fly. They were light and fragile. Inside the sparrow fighters, the Aethonian pilots screamed. The invisible weight crushed them into their seats. "I cannot breathe," Creek gasped over the radio. His chest felt like a mountain was sitting on it. His delicate bones began to crack under the pressure. One by one, the fast Aethonian ships stopped moving. Their engines failed. They began to drift helplessly toward the center of the gravity trap, where they would be crushed completely. "We have them," Vex smiled cruelly. "Watch them pop." But Vex forgot where humans came from. On the human battleship Ironclad, Captain Stone grunted. He fell to one knee. His coffee cup smashed on the floor. It was hard to stand up, but he did not break. Humans evolved on Earth, a planet with high gravity and heavy storms. Humans had dense, thick calcium bones. They were built to carry heavy things. To a human, 10x gravity was painful. To a bird, it was fatal. Status report. Stone yelled, forcing himself to stand up against the heavy weight. "The birds are dying, sir," a sensory officer yelled back. "Their lungs are collapsing. They have 30 seconds. Captain Stone did not hesitate. "Launch the rescue pods. Manual control. Get them out of there." "Sir, the autopilots won't work in this gravity field," the pilot argued. "We have to fly manually. It's suicide. Then we die trying," Stone growled. "Go." The heavy human rescue pods launched. They were ugly and slow, but they were strong. Inside, human pilots struggled to lift their arms to reach the controls. Sweat poured down their faces. Their hearts beat fast. But they pushed forward. The human pods flew into the danger zone. They fired magnetic grappling hooks, thick steel chains, and latched onto the drifting Aethonian ships. "Gotcha," a human pilot grunted. The humans hit their reverse thrusters. The engines roared, fighting the crushing gravity. Metal groaned. The chains pulled tight. Slowly, very slowly, the human ships dragged the Aethonians out of the purple zone. Inside one of the rescued ships, Creek woke up. The pressure was gone. He looked out his window. He saw the human ship that had saved him. It was smoking and damaged from the strain. Creek opened a channel. "Why?" he whispered. "You could have escaped. Why risk your lives for weak birds?" Captain Stone's voice came back, tired but strong. "Because you're not just birds, Creek. You're family. And humans are stubborn." The gravity trap had failed. The council had tried to crush the weak, but they only proved how strong the human bond really was. The Galactic Council thought they were safe on their capital planet, Aegis. It was a world covered in metal. The city had walls that were a mile high. No army had ever broken through them. The High Counselor sat in his tower, drinking purple wine. "The humans and birds are lucky they survived the gravity bomb," he laughed. "But they cannot touch us here. We have the highest walls in the universe." He was looking at the horizon. He should have been looking up. High above the clouds, the bay doors of the human fleet opened. They did not drop bombs. They dropped thousands of soldiers. This was Operation Skyfall. But something was different. The humans and Aethonians had traded gifts. On the ground, the alarm sirens screamed. "We owe! We owe!" "Incoming," the alien guards shouted. They aimed their heavy cannons at the sky. They saw the Aethonians falling toward them. "Easy targets," a guard yelled. "One shot will break their hollow bones." He fired a rocket at a diving Aethonian named Creek. The rocket hit Creek squarely in the chest. Boom! There was a cloud of smoke. The guard smiled, expecting to see feathers flying. Instead, a metal giant walked out of the smoke. Creek was wearing human power armor. It was a thick, robotic suit built to fit a bird. It had hydraulic legs and steel plating. Inside the suit, Creek was safe. He was no longer a fragile bird. He was a walking tank. "My turn," Creek chirped over the speaker. He swung a giant mechanical fist and smashed the guard through a brick wall. The alien defenders were confused. Birds were supposed to be weak. Then, they looked at the humans. Humans were supposed to be ground walkers. They were heavy and could not fly. But General Vance jumped off a roof. He did not fall. A pair of silver wings snapped open on his back. These were aeropacks, designed by Aethonian engineers. They used anti-gravity tech to make the heavy humans light as a feather. Vance glided over the heads of the enemy soldiers. He dropped grenades from above while Creek and the other armored birds smashed through the front gates below. They swapped roles, the alien commander screamed in terror. "The birds are tanks. The monkeys are jets. I don't know how to fight this." It was total panic in the city. The Aethonians, who had spent their whole lives being afraid of getting hit, now marched forward fearlessly. Their suits absorbed every laser blast. They ripped the metal doors off the enemy bunkers. The humans, who had always been stuck in the mud, now felt the joy of flight. They zipped around corners, flanking the enemy, moving faster than the heavy council guards could aim. General Vance landed next to Creek in the center of the city plaza. The High Council Tower was right in front of them. "Nice flying, General," Creek said, his robotic voice booming. "Nice smashing, Creek," Vance replied, reloading his rifle. They looked at the golden doors of the council chamber. The guards protecting the doors dropped their weapons and ran away. They wanted no part of this madness. Vance looked at Creek. "Shall we knock?" Creek revved up his power fist. "Let's knock hard." With one massive punch, the armored bird blew the doors off their hinges. The dust settled, revealing the terrified council leaders hiding under their tables. The war was not just won, it was dominated. The galaxy had learned a new lesson: a bird in a human suit is the scariest thing in the universe. The smoke cleared in the High Council chamber. The Golden Room, once a place of fear, was now a ruin. The mighty High Counselor, the giant lizard who had started the war, was on his knees. His armor was broken. His pride was gone. Around him stood the victors. General Vance stood with his arms crossed. Next to him was Creek, who had opened the faceplate of his power suit to show his blue feathers. The High Counselor looked only at General Vance. He trembled as he held out his ceremonial sword. It was the symbol of ruling the galaxy. "We surrender," the counselor croaked, his voice weak. "We yield to the humans. You are the strongest warriors. We will give you our planets, our money, and our ships. Just spare our lives." General Vance looked at the sword. He did not take it. He did not even smile. "You are making a mistake," Vance said calmly. "You are still ignoring the most important person in the room." The counselor looked confused. He glanced at Creek, the bird, and sneered. "Him. He is a weakling. He needs a metal suit to stand. I will surrender to a predator, not to prey." Vance stepped forward. The room went deadly silent. "That weakling just kicked down your front door. If you want peace, you do not surrender to me." Vance pointed a finger at Creek. "You surrender to him." The High Counselor gasped. To bow to a human was humiliating, but possible. Humans were strong. But to bow to an Aethonian? It went against everything the council believed. I cannot," the counselor stammered. "Then the war continues," Vance said, reaching for his gun. "And this time, we won't stop at the door." The counselor saw the cold look in Vance's eyes. He realized the human was not joking. Slowly, painfully, the giant monster turned toward the small bird. He lowered his head until it touched the floor. "I yield, to the Aethonians," he whispered. Creek took the sword. He did not cut the enemy. He simply broke the sword over his knee. Snap. "No more rulers," Creek chirped, his voice echoing in the hall. "From now on, the council is dissolved. All species are equal. If you try to bully the weak again, the humans will return." News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. The era of fear was over. The era of the Union had begun. 5 years later. On a quiet planet, a school bell rang. Children ran out onto the playground. But it was a strange sight. A human boy was running fast, laughing. Perched on his shoulder was a young Aethonian chick. The bird flapped its wings, giving the boy a boost to jump over a fence. They landed together, rolling in the grass. They did not look like soldiers. They did not look like warriors. They just looked like best friends. A teacher watched them from a distance. She smiled. She remembered the dark days when the galaxy was ruled by cruelty. She looked at the statue in the center of the park. It was a statue of General Vance and Lord Creek. The human was holding a shield, protecting the bird. The bird was holding a sword, protecting the human. The narrator's voice softened for the final line. "The universe is a cold and dark place. It is full of monsters and void. But the monsters learned a lesson they will never forget: you can break a bone, and you can break a wing. But you can never break a bond forged in fire. The sky and the earth are one.